The thing is, legislation's going to have to catch up with this. Obviously, police officers can go through the regular process of a warrant, and they should go through a warrant. By the way, I'm not saying they shouldn't. Yes, it's a tough question because, all right, this car has valuable information relating to, again, something egregious like a murder. It has the smoking gun, you could say. It, saw exactly what happened and can prove it. And the San Francisco Chronicles cited several cases in their article where security camera footage from the Tesla was actually a significant factor in finding and actually convicting someone of a violent crime because, well, there it is. It was on video. So, there's got to be a more efficient way to do this, though. When the officer files the warrant.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. Loaded show for you today. We are going to talk about how your car can witness a crime and be called to the witness stand, figuratively speaking at least. But California police are impounding Teslas that have perhaps witnessed a crime. How does a car witness a crime? Well, they've got all these onboard security cameras all over the car. And this is happening in droves, apparently. So we're going to talk about that. Nissan teases the new Silvia, the return of the famous sports coupe. Will it actually happen? That has yet to be seen. Will it just be a soulless EV? What the heck is a Silvia anyway? We're going to get to that and more. And Ford, finally, they have patented a system that, well, what it does is it listens to your conversations and then gives you advertisements that correspond to your conversations in the car. Yeah, not just ads in your car, ads catered to your conversations. And they filed this patent. We're going to discuss that. We're going to get to the winner of this month's car sound giveaway. And there might actually be more than one winner. Well, I'll tell you about that too. All right here on Automotive ADHD. Now, if you're watching on video, which you can on YouTube and Rumble, I'm a little bit more of a hunchback today. I've injured my back and my neck, and I wasn't doing something exciting and cool. No, I was chopping wood, and I injured myself. I pulled something. I screwed something up. Chopping wood, by the way. And look, you're getting older when you can hurt yourself doing normal mundane tasks. Or even better, you go to bed one night, and somehow in the night you've just magically injured yourself and pulled something. It's amazing. It's amazing how that can happen. So yeah, if I'm a little more hunched over, I'm trying my best. But that being said, one thing that's really nice is I now have my Volvo 240 returned to me, which is no doubtably that is my most comfortable car to drive, which is really nice now that I'm kind of constantly in pain. And that car is so pleasant to drive. Now, where has it been? I kind of actually forgot that I owned it, but which that can happen sometimes. But what happened is I've been working on a bunch of projects. If you follow the show, I've got the AE86 with individual throttle bodies on it. That's really fun. I've got the Honda S2000 freshly with a K24 stuffed into it. And, I have this Volvo, and it's just been on the back burner for so long because I've been working on other projects. So I finally said, you know what? I'm never going to get to it. So a reasonable person would probably say, I'm never getting to this project. I'm going to sell it. Well, I am no reasonable person. In fact, I am the host of this show, which means I decided to dump more money into it than it's actually worth and just have Brian, friend of the show, he's a career mechanic, and I just decided to say, hey, Brian, here's a car. Fix everything. Make it nice. Make it less of a project car. And look, I work on all of my own stuff, and this is weird for me to actually take a car to a mechanic sometimes. And but it's worked out beautifully because in exchange for cash, Brian has finished my project car in the sense that it's nice now. It has air conditioning. Hear me out. A old car with air conditioning. I know. Mind blowing. I mean, it's it's so counterintuitive. I don't even know who I am anymore because I'm driving an old car around that actually has working air conditioning. It's the car doesn't necessarily look any better. And trust me, this was a very, very cheap car. But the good news is the suspension, all fresh. The air conditioning, that's been fixed. Pretty much every creak and odd and weird issue it's had here and there, that's been mended. Look, even the fuel gauge works. So does the speedometer. Everything is working on it now, which is insane. I should probably start knocking on some wood because the second I say everything's working, something's gonna break. But that's all bad. It's just been put back together. The car was in shambles. It's just been sitting around. Yeah, sure, it ran. Didn't run all that well. Now, the car does now have the standalone ECU on it. But the rest of the drivetrain is entirely stock. This is how we do things around here, okay? This is how we do things around here. Mostly because the wiring harness was completely gacked. The old ECU was toast. It just wasn't worth trying to build a new harness and just put a standalone on it. The good news, by the way, is it now has flex fuel and ethanol. And let me remind you, it is a stock Volvo red block. The drivetrain, it's stock. It's hilarious. Why would you put a standalone ECU on this? Why would you invest this money into this car? I have more money now in just labor for Brian than the car is worth. And that's not even including parts. And this is the sort of automotive madness that you come to expect from, well, someone who sits here on the radio talking more about cars than actually working on his cars. But it gets me to, I'm not just ranting about my own vehicles, I'm not, but it gets me to an interesting point, which is if you have a project car, sometimes what happens with project cars, and even if you have a daily driver, is on a long enough timeline, your daily driver will become a project car, which means it has a high likelihood of also becoming a track car. Even if you already have a track car, your daily driver runs the risk. There is a risk of it becoming a track car as well. And this is just the cyclical nature of how things work. Now, if maybe you don't have a project car and, you know, maybe your neighbor does and you're like, gosh, that car's loud. I hate that car. Why is he always working on it? Can't he just drive something normal? Can't he just drive something nice? He could, but he chooses not to. I will say that. It's maybe not even like a voluntary decision. It might be a more subconscious sort of thing. But at least sympathize with your neighbor who has a project car, because they aren't driving a nice car to work. They're driving a car that has no air conditioning, that maybe has a roll cage in it that's loud, that is certainly causing hearing loss to the occupants in the vehicle. And there is something to be said, though, for having a car that's just nice. I can get in my 240 and just go to a fast food place. I can go get coffee in it. It has air conditioning, like blissful, wonderful air conditioning. And my ears aren't ringing after I'm driving it. My back isn't already hurting. Gosh, my back is ruined right now, and I can't imagine if I had to drive here to the radio station in my AE86 at the bucket seats and the harnesses. I probably wouldn't actually be, sitting here talking to you. I'd be a crumpled up mess on the floor, just writhing in pain. So I think there's merit to having at least one, dare I say, normal car. And again, I run the risk of completely alienating myself to who I thought I was. Just, it's all project cars. But look, as things have gone, as I've grown older, I have also injured myself, obviously, in various ways that are completely normal. But I've also suddenly grown an appreciation for having a comfortable car. I get it. My Tacoma is supposed to be my daily driver. Well, that's kind of because that's succumbed to the cyclical nature of the fact that it now has also become a project car because of various things that I've broken or that have failed or that just need some attention after almost 200,000 miles. So it is what it is. So look, if you can sympathize to this plight of maybe needing a somewhat reasonable car. Now, for some of my audience who listens on the radio, you probably have a normal car. You're probably a reasonable person. You probably, you probably just use it to get to work and stuff. But for a portion of my audience as well, especially those listening on the podcast, I know you're more of the diehard, sort of car enthusiast. I mean, am I wrong? Let me know. Just let me know on the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. Am I losing touch with my ways? Am I becoming soft by wanting a comfortable car that's not fast, it doesn't make my back hurt. It has air conditioning. I can drive it around. I might even have to turn in my man card for this. It's an automatic. I got to whisper that. I can't say that too loud. It's an automatic. Like, I could be in stop and go traffic and it's fine. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Facebook.com/automotive ADHD. Now, after the break here, we are going to talk a little bit about Ford patenting that new system to deliver you advertisements in your car. We're going to talk about the Nissan Silvia, some of the history behind it, why it might be coming back. And we're going to talk about EVs and why the police might be taking your EV into the courtroom. That's all right here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere. And you can send those car sounds into my show and, hey, even win some free stuff while you're at it. Matt West here, hanging out with you on the Automotive ADHD show, and I played listener-submitted car sounds just like that one. That is Bale Browning's 1994 Chevy K1500 with the 6.5-liter turbo diesel. Is that a Detroit diesel? I want to say that's a Detroit diesel. I might be mistaken, though. You can correct me on that, but that's all of that, including a destroyed transfer case. Yes, indeed. You know, we set the bar really high for car sounds on this show. We've had Pikes Peak Hill Climb drivers. We've had race cars. We've had amazing vehicles, performance-oriented vehicles on this show. And we also have had this 1994 Chevy with a destroyed transfer case just grinding away right there. We've had that. We've also had tractor sounds on the show, motorcycle sounds on the show. I think we had listener Colin once send a sound of him blowing up his transmission like a while back. We've had that before too. So, the bar, of course, is very, very high. But Bale Browning here, he is the winner for this month's car sound giveaway. Now, he technically sent that in near the end of August. We're getting to it now. And what he gets for being a winner, and do I have it sitting here in the studio? I'm sure I do. Of course, it's behind me. Here we go. Is the Automotive ADHD key tag here. A nice embroidered key tag. You can fish your keys out of your pocket. And of course, it lets people know that they should probably not trust your opinion on cars, especially when it comes to mechanical things. It does set a flag that might say that. But having said that, he gets this. He also gets the As Heard on the Automotive ADHD show sticker. And I'm throwing this into a $25 auto parts store gift certificate. Now, granted, that $25 gift certificate probably is not going to be enough to fix his transfer case. Probably is not going to be enough. But at least I can sit here all proud of myself and say that I helped. Even though I didn't raise a finger, I didn't get my hands greasy, I didn't even give you enough money to fix it, but I helped. So I get to feel good about myself. And of course, you get the $25 parts store gift certificate, and you have your car sounds on the show. You can tell your friends, hey, my car sounds were on this radio show, and I want some free stuff. And then they will say, yeah, that's clearly not enough money to fix your transfer case. Why'd you even bother? But anyway, so I want to thank you, by the way, for sending those car sounds into the show. Now, should you choose to do the same, as in sending transfer case noises, broken transfer case noises, should you choose to do that, you can send those into facebook.com/automotive ADHD. Oh, I should mention, by the way, I have another winner. We're just gonna drop them in here randomly into the show later on. This other winner who's gonna win more stuff, the same stuff I just talked about, but I'm gonna announce that in a later segment. So stay tuned. It could be you if you're listening. So I got to talk a little bit about EVs. It seems like there's every week that we do the show that some discussion with EVs happens. And I obviously end up receiving flack and criticism on the internet for talking. If I say I like EVs, people hate me. If I say I hate EVs, people hate me. So I guess I'm going to be hated either way. So let's just just talk about it. You know my opinion on the show. Of course, Jim Miller and I agree on a fundamental level as well with EVs. And you can hear my show with him from last week. And that agreement is in the sense that, look, if it fits your need and it fits your use case, go buy it. Buy what makes you happy. Spend your hard-earned money the way you want to spend it. And the government shouldn't be coming in to tell you you have to spend it one way or another, or that you're not allowed to spend it in a certain way. But let's get to this here, because Volvo has announced that they don't think they are going to make the 2030 full electric lineup. Now, previously, they said that we're going to go full electric, full steam ahead on EVs. And we're going to have a full electric lineup by the year 2030. And they're backtracking on that now. And this, I think, EVs have had this thing, especially with European countries, European governments, the EU saying, oh, we're going all electric, or we're banning gas cars by this date, without any regard for how the technology is, the progression of the technology, the infrastructure, the idea. And this happens here in the United States, too. I mean, look at the kill switch mandate, the 2026 kill switch mandate. The legislators have said, and the same thing with EVs, okay, we get that this isn't feasible right now, but we're going to mandate it anyway, and just say that if we mandate it, the industry will figure it out. They will figure it out in one way or another through the means of our mandate. And if they don't figure it out, we'll fine them, or we will ban them from selling their products in our country, or whatever. And I think that 2030 is not that far from now. Okay, I mean, really, it's 2024, near the end of it even, really. I mean, we got a couple months left here in 2024. That's basically a little over 5 years until 2030. And to say that your entire lineup is going to be electric only, that's a big stretch. That's a big stretch. Imagine 5 years. 5 years, it's really not that long. And to say that we're going to have all of the infrastructure in place by then, we're going to have all of the manufacturing, the back end for it done by then, is not really is not really realistic when you think about it. And here's a couple of things I'm gonna and hat tip here for Caleb Miller at Car and Driver, who quotes some executives at Volvo, and who talks about the company's CEO, by the way, Jim Rowan. Jim Rowan said that the EVs are going to be, challenging. So he explained that Volvo will not be, quote, dogmatic in the switch to EVs. He also says, quote, the road to electrification won't be linear. And, in this, I think, he says he still believes in electrification. He says he thinks, quote, at the end of the day, technology will win and electrification will be the technology of the future. It's just going to take a little longer than everybody first thought. By everybody, you mean, the people who, that everybody doesn't include those of us who've looked at this and clearly said, hey, hold on. This doesn't make sense yet. And even if it does, what if I don't want it? What if I want to buy a gas one? What if that makes more sense for me? And I think we're going to see this happen as we see fluctuations in EV sales, as we see fluctuations in the popularity of these things, as they pop up, as they, get popular here, or they fall back here. We've seen Ford struggling a little bit with some of the EVs that it has, in terms, not of the product. In fact, I actually really like the F-150 Lightning. Like I've said before, I have a family member who drives one. I think it's a very, very nice truck. But in terms of actual profit and business, they have been losing money on their EVs, while Tesla, meanwhile, has been selling their EVs. They've been selling just boatloads of these things, and I think some of it comes down to the consumer desire for these vehicles, perhaps because of brand image, because of other things, not just because it's electric. So I think it's going to take a little while. I think the market is speaking. This is what's happening right now. We are seeing the benefit right now of the open market actually voicing their opinions and voting with their wallets, and people aren't buying these EVs as much. And right now in the US, especially, even, it makes a lot of sense financially to go buy a budget EV. I mean, there's about $12,000 of tax credits that you get with that. And they even updated legislation to say that you can get your tax credits, particularly your federal tax credit, up front at the time of purchase, rather than waiting to file your taxes and get that back on your tax return. That you can even get that up front. The incentive is there. And yet the market seems hesitant. Now we're seeing more EVs. We're seeing the sector grow. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that, oh, it's not growing, no one wants to buy them. No, people are buying them. They're buying them more than they did years ago. But even then, are we seeing this mass jump? Are we seeing so many people jump into this right now that we could say, yeah, we're full electric by 2030? That's 5 years. That's 5 years. Think about where we were 5 years ago and compare that to now. It's not that different. It's not going to be that quick. I think the great thing with the middle ground here being that, we scrape past the mandates and we have a free and open market where we can decide what we want to buy. And I think that's going to create a really healthy market. That's going to create innovation in both the EV and the gas space, especially with them competing against each other without the incentive of mandates necessarily. I shouldn't say incentive. That's not quite the right word. But, I think that's going to create good and healthy competition. Manufacturers are going to build a gas car that maybe provides some form of engagement, that maybe provides something in its user experience that you aren't getting with an EV, and vice versa with an EV. They're going to say, hey, we need to get more infrastructure going. We need to make these things more convenient. We need to, for example, with EV trucks, I think that's a part of the market that's really not picked up yet, but it has high potential. Why don't we have charging infrastructure that actually has room for a trailer? Like, it really sucks if you are driving around in a Cybertruck or an F-150 Lightning or a Rivian and you have a trailer hooked up. You've got a 25-foot trailer and you need to pull into one of these little parking spots with a charger. You got to you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're going to have to unhitch your trailer. You're going to have to block a bunch of space and you might not be able to get in there. So, there's room for improvement. And I think as the market goes, we will, if you, rather than just mandating that we all have to have this EV thing by a certain time, I'm preaching to the choir here. I know I am. And I've talked about this on the show, but it's worth mentioning that you just let the market do its thing. Let people vote with their wallet. Manufacturers need to then create other incentives other than just, well, the government says so, to actually make you want to buy these products. And that's going to create a better product at the end of the day. I'm a firm believer in that. And I think, without sounding too full of myself, that could be very successful. I think that could be very successful. So anyway, couple more things to get to here. Of course, I do want to take some time and talk about what happens when your car witnesses a crime and what the California police is doing with that. It could wind up with your car in the impound yard. And this is something that's happening in bigger. It's not just one or two instances. This is actually happening in larger amounts, specifically in California right now. But it raises a question. It raises a question of, we have modern cars. We have modern technology. They have modern surveillance on them. They have all these sensors and cameras. And this is providing is it a moral question? Is it a logistical question? We have to find out, but we have to figure out what to actually do with all of this stuff that's happening. This is going to change legislation in a way that we're going to have to pay attention to. So, hey, don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. We'll be back after the break.
He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Before the break, I was talking a little bit about how if you have a Tesla, your car might get called in as a star witness to some sort of crime. And this is going on in California. And this comes by way of the San Francisco Chronicle, Rachel Swan, hat tip to Rachel Swan. But what happened is recently what spurred this is a Canadian tourist who was visiting Oakland, California, realized that, well, somebody was trying to tow his Tesla from a hotel parking lot. And when he went to confront that person, well, that person ended up being a police officer who said, well, your car was the witness of a crime, and we need the footage off of the security cameras on your car. And this is a thing that can happen. This is a thing, especially if you're unfamiliar with how Teslas operate with this, they have cameras all over the car. Not just the dash cam. They've got cameras by the mirrors. They got them facing backwards. They got them all over the place. Basically, essentially, 360 degrees of coverage. And Teslas have a feature known as Sentry Mode. And Sentry Mode can record things that happen around the car. And when it does that, it can do that based off of a number of factors that can trigger the recording. But regardless, it can record everything all the time. You should essentially treat a Tesla like it's a security camera on wheels. And that's what the police want to do. And this is interesting. So this gentleman, Sergeant Ben Theriault, president of the Richmond Police Officers Association, said in an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle, quote, "We have all these mobile video devices floating around." He goes on to say how officers now frequently seek video from bystander Teslas. Now, typically, they say in here that owners get the consent, or rather that police get consent of the owners to download the video. Because you might be saying, well, why do they have to impound the whole car? Can't they just download it? Well, yes, they can. But Sergeant Ben Theriault said that it is still necessary at times. He says, quote, "It's the most drastic thing you can do," end quote. He acknowledged that, but he goes on to say that tows are necessary if police can't locate the owner, for example, and they need the video to pursue all leads. So if it's some sort of, especially egregious crime, a violent crime, a murder, something like that. And this has happened at least 3 other times in California, just between July and August, just in the past couple months here. And so what happens is each time that one of these cars gets impounded, an officer has to go and, file essentially a warrant. They have to go through the warrant process. And in these warrant processes, they frequently cite the Sentry Mode that Teslas have. Now, typically, the system records things like I mentioned that happen around the car. Various things can trigger it. And it's typically stored in a USB drive in the glove box, they say. Now, again, this can be hard if you don't know where the owner is. You don't know who the owner is. I can't imagine you wouldn't know who the owner is based off of just vehicle registration. But to our Canadian guy, it's possible the police went over there and said, "Oh, that's a Canada plate on that Tesla. Yeah, we don't know who that is. That's not the Canadian plate doesn't communicate with our system." So anyway, here's the thing. So there are a number of issues when it comes to this. Now, this article in the San Francisco Chronicles did go on to say that a lot of times this can happen with self-driving vehicles as well, which are on the road in California. And those self-driving vehicles, same thing. They got cameras all around them and, hey, even inside them, pointing at the occupants in many cases, just to prevent, vandalism, or at least not prevent it necessarily, but, figure it out after the fact. But they said in the cases relating to self-driving vehicles operated by companies like Waymo, the police department, rather than seizing the vehicle, subpoenas the actual company for the footage. And you might be saying, well, why don't they do that with the Teslas? Why are they towing these cars? Why are they impounding the cars? And it's apparently because allegedly Tesla doesn't actually have access to that information. That information is stored locally on the vehicle, and it is accessible to the owner and the owner only. So doing a subpoena for that information to Tesla really wouldn't be all that helpful to them, because Tesla says that they don't have access to that information. Now, do I believe that? I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that Tesla doesn't have access to something on one of their vehicles, even if it's just the surveillance footage stored on the flash drive. I'm skeptical of that. But regardless, this means that when they have a crime or something, they have to go through the warrant process, and then they have to then acquire the vehicle, enter the vehicle, recover the footage off of the vehicle through the warrant process. The same way if they were to get a warrant to search some data on a cell phone, for example, they have to go through all of that process. But what I think this does is it creates an interesting dilemma, which is that, for one, this is going to be a fact of life going forward, because more and more cars are becoming are coming out equipped with security cameras. It's not just Tesla. It's going to be pretty much all of them. I mean, having a Sentry mode feature is something I think a lot of owners even want typically because it's extra accountability. It's an extra layer of protection. If someone vandalizes your vehicle, you want to have that on camera. Same reason you also want to have a dash cam. I am a big advocate of dash cams, especially after my AE86 got backed into. Actually, about a year ago, last September, it got backed into and I didn't have a dash cam. I was able to get it ultimately resolved, but gosh, the process was a lot harder, not just having, by just not having the video, the process was significantly more challenging and proving fault and so on. So the thing is, legislation is going to have to catch up with this. Obviously, police officers can go through the regular process of a warrant, and they should go through a warrant. By the way, I'm not saying they shouldn't. Yes, it's a tough question because, all right, this car has valuable information relating to, again, something egregious like a murder. It has the smoking gun, you could say. It, saw exactly what happened and can prove it. And the San Francisco Chronicles cited several cases in their article where security camera footage from the Tesla was actually a significant factor in finding and actually convicting someone of a violent crime because, well, there it is. It was on video. So, there's got to be a more efficient way to do this, though. When the officer files the warrant, they must file a warrant. Still, they can't just tow your car or bust into it and grab the footage without a warrant. That's an invasion of your actual privacy and your private property. But there should be a better way for them to, once they file that warrant, once they get a judge to approve that, to be able to say, hey, owner, we know you have this footage. Can you get that to us in the best way possible? And, it's challenging to say, too, well, hey, owner, can you go grab this flash drive and then do this and then upload it to that? I don't know. It's a lot of work. So I don't know if necessarily connecting this to Tesla's servers would be a good idea because then you really have the footage on something that is, sure, it's private. It's not shared with anybody, but is it really? Again, it raises that question. But I think this is something that manufacturers are going to have to grapple with in one way or another when they install these cameras on cars. Now, granted, if you have a regular old car and you put a dash cam in it and they get a warrant, yeah, maybe they actually seize the dash cam to fulfill the warrant, or you just give them the SD card from it. But still, there's got to be a better way. And I'm not saying I have the solutions right now, but looking at this is only going to be a problem more and more as we go forward. And it's not going to just affect Teslas. I mean, all of these different car companies are doing cameras in their vehicles, and it's just going to be an expected feature, by the way. People want this. The market does want this. People love having that Sentry mode, and it's great, too, if you're a rideshare driver, like whatever. You don't have to have that additional expense of having a dash cam installed in your vehicle. And plus, having it built into the car on the outside in different locations, on the fenders, on the mirrors, wherever, you get more angles than you could ever hope to just slapping a dash cam up on the windshield of your car. So this is going to be something. There's got to be a better way to do it, and we'll see what happens going forward. But I guarantee, if there's one thing I guarantee, this is not the last you are going to hear of police impounding cars because the car witnessed a crime. So, hey, don't go anywhere. We are going to talk about Ford and more after the break. You're listening to Automotive ADHD right here. Car Sounds, a Nissan 300 ZX, 1987, by the way. David Smith, thank you for sending that car sound into the show. And David, you are the second winner to win in the car sound giveaway. So congratulations to you. I'm going to send you some fun stuff. You can go ahead and check that out. Go check your DMs on Facebook. And now, if you want to be like David and send your car sounds into my show, you can do that. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Of course, I am Matt West, and you are listening to the Automotive ADHD show. By the way, if you want to send those car sounds in, when you send them in, go ahead and follow the Facebook page, too, while you're at it. Currently, the Facebook page is at 969 followers. Very, Nice. And you can get on there. Let's get that up to 1,000 followers on there. And put those car sounds on there. Share them for everybody to see. It's really fun. You can be featured here on the show. And, of course, tell your friends that, yeah, my car was on this radio show. So, anyway, go do that. Check it out again, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. And, hey, we're putting more stuff on the Facebook page. Lots of highlights and stuff from the show now. Clips. Big thanks to Jared, by the way, who helps with video, and he puts those clips together. And he's doing the best he can to make me look like I don't have a face for radio. So, which I don't know if that's possible. I'm pretty sure there's nothing that can be done about that, but he's doing his best on there. So again, thanks for Jared for doing that. Now, I promised that I would talk a little bit about Ford, and I think I want to save the discussion for the Nissan Silvia, the return of the Silvia, for a bonus edition of the show, which we'll do right here after the show. So stick around for that. It'll be listed as a podcast, YouTube and Rumble, as well as Spotify and wherever fine shows. And, hey, mine are downloaded. So with Ford has filed a new patent. I feel like today I've just been harping on modern cars with modern tech and, they're bad, they suck. And this I very strongly feel against. I really do. I mean, This is pretty much the worst thing you could do, because it's gonna be in EVs, it's gonna be in gas cars. Every car with an infotainment system and a screen on it is subject to this. Now, they're not saying they're gonna do it. They filed a patent. I'll get this out of the way at the front of this, but Ford oftentimes files patents that perhaps they don't intend to act on, but you always have to wonder. It's typically these big companies are filing patents every single day. They want to, hey, we got a good idea. Someone came up with this. Let's file that patent. Let's just sit on it so we have it if we need it. The fact that if they need it is concerning, because I think this is something that should just be outright banned. I think legislators should come from around the world. The UN, all of these countries should get together and actually make a useful piece of legislation which says you can't do this in cars. I mean, we would actually even achieve world peace, perhaps, knowing that this is not something that is coming to cars anytime soon. World peace, it might even solve, all of the wars in the world, hunger, famine, everything on one fell swoop. But with that, Ford has patented a system. Hat tip Alex Kirsten from Motor Trend for this. That this patent, basically, as I'm looking at it, essentially says that they can listen using microphones in the cabin of the car to your conversations, and then they can then recommend advertisements and play fitting advertisements on the infotainment system to you at varying intervals. And the fact that there's even advertisements in the infotainment system is egregious on its own. I would be incredibly objectionable. I would object to that significantly, just on that basis. But the fact is that this recommends advertisements based on conversations in the car. That's even more nuts. That's even more mind-blowing. And here's the thing, I think, with this. For one, this could lead to some hilarious mishaps with advertisements. And granted, I think we know that things like Google and these tech companies do this. You've ever been having a conversation with a friend about something, and then you get an ad for it, even though you never searched it. They say they're not listening. I don't buy it. But this is, they're just saying the quiet part out loud here. They're saying they're just going to do it. Yeah, we're going to listen to your conversations and then play ads based off of your conversations. But again, that could result in some hilarious things. I'm just saying that could result in some really funny stuff. And also, how would it know if you're listening to like the radio or something, and it's a conversation on the radio versus you? How would they know? How would they know if it's like, what if it's a passenger in the car and not someone who regularly rides in it, or like an Uber? What's gonna, if it's gonna start recommending ads based off of that, or is it just gonna do ads based off of each conversation? And I don't know. But, Ford, they said here that their patent, by the way, even acknowledges that people may not want to have ads played at them in their car because that could be distracting. They're driving. Now, in their patent, though, the system, they haven't built this yet, but they're saying that they could, is that the system would know that if you're stopped, for example, maybe you're in a drive-through line, it would know that, or you're stopped in traffic, and then it would pop an ad up in the infotainment system. And they say the system's even smart enough to know if you're displeased with that ad. If that ad comes up and you go, oh gosh, that's a dumb advertisement, then it would know, it would note that, and then play a different ad at you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm talking to you here on the radio. There are ads on the radio. I get that. That is one of the few ways that we pipe advertisements into your car already. I get that. I know someone's going to be watching the podcast on the video and is typing that in the comments already. That, well, hey, you already play ads on the radio. And that's basically the same thing. It's not. It's not the same thing. For one, it's not a visual ad. It's not taking up real estate anywhere. I can mute it anytime I like. I can switch the radio station. I can do whatever. But I do get that. And I do work in an ad-funded industry. I get that. There is importance to that. But just having ads, I mean, imagine any website you've gone to with all the banner ads on it now and how tacky and horrible that is. And that pops up in your infotainment system. Imagine even, I'm just going out on a limb here, but imagine that, how you have those skippable ads. Oh, okay, you got to wait 5 seconds, then you can skip it. Well, imagine all your climate control is on the infotainment system on these modern cars. Okay, I want to turn the AC on. Oh, I got to watch an ad. Oh, it's 5 seconds. Oh, come on, the ad's not skippable. I have to watch the whole ad before I adjust my climate control. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying that's technically possible. And I think this is, if anything, aside from the potential humor, especially if you've got some friends who like to mess with you and play pranks on you, they could go to your car at some point, grab your keys, jump in your car while you're not there, and just sit there and talk about hilarious stuff. And then you come back to your car and you're getting ads for whatever, right? I mean, that could happen, technically. I mean, would I do that to one of my friends? Absolutely not. I'm saying that with a perfectly straight face. So there is potential for humor in this, but I think this is just, this is something. Hey, Ford, if you're listening, I know you're not, but if you are, and if you are, why not how about this? Why not run some ads on your infotainment system for my show? I mean, I'm just kidding. No. I mean, we need to not have ads whatsoever in the cars, unless they're ads for my show. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. So, hey, we're going to continue the conversation about Nissan and the new Silvia. We're going to do that in a bonus edition of the show. So if you're watching on podcast, stay right here on the channel, on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, wherever. I do want to thank Jared, who helps me with the video, and thank everybody who helps get this show on the air at all of the radio stations it airs on. Remember, don't miss a minute of this show. I'll talk to you next week when another crusty, rusty project car probably shows up in my driveway. Talk to you then.